They
No.
didn't expect it to go like that.
They didn't think we wanted a turbo 4-cylinder because we were so chest beating on V8s.
Yeah.
But what they failed to recognize is the cultural impact that the Fast and the Furious had on the general psyche of the nation. It became this, like, you could drive imports in California or near New York, but like then it became cool to drive imports in Kansas. And
Right.
that changed everything. If anybody wants to argue with me on this, they're wrong. And that
Okay.
is, our entire industry exists due to that movie.
And I mean, you mentioned it, Gran Turismo. I mean, that was kind of the feeder because I think Gran Turismo 1 was
For sure.
97 and
Then
96,
2 was,
97.
yeah,
Something
2
like
was
that.
huge because you had like 50 different WRXs you could play with,
Yeah. And that car was a fun car, it was a fast car there, but it didn't exist here. And that's what
No.
people wanted. And there was some Subaru people that had GCs that were trying to build cars or importing engines.
Yeah.
But it was small, but they were out there. And then once they kind of opened the gates, I mean, I remember the story being that Subaru was surprised that the WRX, to the best of my recollection, the WRX sold out the first 2 years of production in 02 and 03.
Yes.
And they didn't expect that. They
No.
didn't expect it to go like
They
that.
didn't think we wanted a turbo 4-cylinder because we were so chest beating on V8s.
Yeah.
But what they failed to recognize is the cultural impact that the Fast and the Furious had on the general psyche of the nation. It became this, like, you could drive imports in California or near New York, but like then it became cool to drive imports in Kansas. And
Right.
that changed everything.
So that, because that was 2000, is that right?
That was 2001.
2001, right?
And if anybody wants to argue with me on this, they're wrong. And that
Okay.
is, our entire industry exists due to that movie.
So I remember that. Tasso, boy, you didn't even have your license yet. Did this
No.
movie
I was
have any
still into
impact
it.
on you?
So at the
Okay.
time, I was into like 4-wheel drives, and I grew up with a Land Cruiser that I still have today, and it was my second, but whatever, kind of first car. And so I was into cars and stuff, and so it was either watch the Power Block Saturday and Sunday at 11 to noon or whatever it was when it came on, whatever channel it came on with, like whatever that was, Trucks TV with Stacey David or whatever, It was
Yeah.
watch that or watch Fast and the Furious or Gone in 60 Seconds. And that was like, I had a buddy, his dad had like a Mustang. And so we'd go and hang out at his garage and look at the Mustang or whatever, but so, right. It was, even though I wasn't into imports, I couldn't drive yet, stuff like that. It was still an iconic movie, even for me. And I mean, shit, I still watch it to this day. I drag all the guys at work, like, hey, dude, what do you want to watch? Let's put on fucking Fast and the Furious. Like,
But
oh,
the
man,
first
that movie
one.
sucks.
The
Yeah.
first one is
Only the
still,
first
I
one.
think
I
now
love
it's
the
the
second
best
one.
comedy ever made. It's so good.
Well, yeah.
The second
Okay.
one is great for quotability, though. So
Yeah,
I don't know if we're
there's-
gonna, like, I
Find
don't
a
know if we're
better
gonna
movie. Maybe Step Brothers was better
Yeah.
for
Right.
quotability, and that's
pocket
about
plane
it.
empty, cuh. I said,
Yeah,
don't
right.
I said drop it, cuh.
Right.
Nice
So
shirt, Bilkins.
here's interesting trivia for anybody. Fast and the Furious was actually a remake. Go back. There's a movie called No Man's Land, starring Charlie Sheen and DB Sweeney from, I want to say, 1986.
Oh, no.
That
Okay.
Fast and the Furious is basically, it is the exact same story, but except it's all about Porsches. And
That's the movie you're gonna quote, and you're not gonna quote. You're not. It is
No,
a
no.
direct
No, no.
knockoff of Point Break.
I'm not saying it's
is Point Break.
it's not
Yeah.
it's not that quotable.
I mean,
I'm just saying Fast and the Furious was actually a remake, but the interesting point there is, like, it didn't take off then, but it was
But the
because it was
plot
on
is
high-end
Point Break.
cars.
The
I think
plot's Point Break,
that
though. I'm
I
about
think
to
that
look at
Fast
my
and the Furious
camera.
took off because it was showing, highlighting a segment of the car culture that was unknown to most of us.
Yes. Give me a quick second.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose my camera, and I'm about to. I didn't realize I didn't give it power.
So what's this? You said No Man's Land?
No Man's Land. Yep.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
I'm looking it up right now. I don't know what like copyright laws are on podcasts too. If we quote too much Fast and the Furious, do we owe them money?
I think they owe us money. I think.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they
Yeah, at this point, I
they
think
have
they owe
cost
us
us a
money.
lot.
I don't see it.
All right,
Charlie
I think
Sheen?
I'm good.
Charlie
Thank
Sheen
you.
and yeah.
1987. Sure enough. Oh,
It's
boy.
worth a watch. I might have a DVD that you could borrow.
You might be dating yourself with this one a little bit, even more than before.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, I can see it. I'll watch it. Oh man, literally, it also has people also search for Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
But then also Drive, which is not right there. Also, with a car movie, really.
I'll tell you this, like the craziest thing watching No Man's Land is like the plot points. Like it is the story of Fast and the Furious.
Do they
Like
let
it
him
is.
go in the end?
Yeah. Do they do the whole surf off into the sunset thing?
Boy,
I guess we
it's
gotta
been a
watch
long
it.
time since I watched it.
I'll be back.
Don't think
It's
so.
losing its mind.
All right.
This might be an opportunity for, if you know how No Man's Land ends, comment down below
Sure.
and tell us, because I don't know. Hopefully, we actually watch it. That's what we would do if we were responsible people. But
I will pull it back up tonight and I will find out. But
right.
to the best of my recollection, I don't think so. I don't think it has the exact same ending, but it is basically the same plot.
Sure. So at what point do you think the Fast and the Furious franchise died? Because arguably it hasn't died. Right?
I don't think it
super
really
successful.
died. I think it's just different.
When did it leave us, though?
Well, man, I don't want this to be all about Fast and the Furious. I
We're
think
here now.
I think that when it became like too ridiculous. Like to me, my favorite one is the third one. I think that is
Which one's
the
the third one?
that's
Well,
the
we
one,
can all be
Tokyo
wrong.
Drift. Tokyo Drift.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
like it's the most non-farcical representation of what could be car culture, and then from that point on it just got kind of insane. And like I can't remember which one it was where they're like driving with modified Chargers that are dragging giant bank safes through town.
That was too later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
even before that, they're like blitzing through tunnels and the Mexican-American border and stuff like that. And
right.
Take it easy. Take it easy. Take
It's
a lap.
like it went away from car culture and it became like, like summer blockbuster shenanigans.
Yeah.
Like it's like the cars were superheroes and the drivers were superheroes, and it was not tethered to reality anymore.
I agree.
But it sparked imagination, and it got people, like, it made people go like, wait a minute, are you saying that in LA, in some place at like the middle of the night, there are people that actually manually close off a road and actually hold races like that? Is that actually
So I gotta know, if you were in the community at that time, when you heard was it Victor say, it's like, no, I don't race anymore, I'm going legit on a Naira circuit. Was that actually like a circuit you guys knew about? And
the Nitrous circuit or whatever he was talking about wasn't, but it was the
wasn't it
NIRA or whatever. There was a legit drag racing circuit that was stepping up at that point.
That I think Nopi was sponsoring.
Yeah, and then at that point, like, import drag racing actually started getting kind of serious.
Yeah,
like there was some big money that was getting thrown into a lot of this stuff. Too much money, honestly. The same thing happened to Time Attack right after that. Like Time Attack exploded in the late 2010s. Like huge money was getting thrown at it. They had an NBC Sports like slot, and Redline was going nuts. And they had all these crazy ideas they were going with, and they were bringing over Japanese teams and all sorts of stuff. It was absolutely crazy. And then like it all came crashing down because there was nothing behind it, and they kind of lost what the concept was behind it.
What was there like a video, an event, something like a initiating spark or whatever for Time Attack getting that same kind of attention?
It kind of what ended up happening. I mean, the import industry was already moving. Drag racing kind of became uncool, and then like you had the magazines which ran what was cool and what wasn't. So basically Super Street, Sport Compact Car, they were all screaming, go to the track, go to the track, go to the track. And Super Street was pushing Time Attack hard because we kept seeing these insane cars in these magazines.
And Sport Compact.
Yeah. Sport Compact Cars, Super Street, and Turbo were all pushing these like Looney Tunes, like Time Attack builds, you know what I mean? And we started seeing these in the magazines, and we all wanted it. And that's kind of where it came from.
You can't leave out drifting. because drifting came on the scene about the same
About
time.
the same time.
And I think that the drag racing focus got shifted into drift, and then there was I think there's a little bit more of a correlation. It's a stretch, but if you stretch a little bit, there's more of a correlation between drifting and time attack, at least from the spectacle and the type of car.
I agree with you.
And so there was a little, I think that kind of fed into the time attack a little bit, like is where the time attack was trying to get.
Also when you look at the cars, if I go, because I still have some old Super Streets here, you'd have one or two things that were on the cover. The reason I say Super Street is because honestly, at the time, they kind of dictated what the car culture, at least the import car culture, was about.
They were documenting the car culture for sure.
They really were, and some places, in some ways, steering it. So they, you'd have signals, like drift car on the front, and it had a wing and it had some basic aero and whatever. And then within that, you'd have a time attack car or two, or it'd be the other way around. You'd have a time attack car, and then you'd have a couple of different drift cars. It's just what these wild builds, especially coming out of Japan, were looking like. We were doing drag stuff here, but after we wanted to do more, the whole JDM culture pushed us to want to do whatever Japan was doing. And at that time, it was really hot in the time attack and drifting.
And drifting and time attack, all these cars that are being shown in these magazines, those were the bleeding edge. That was like the fastest. That was like the edge of technology of what could be done, and those were the cars were pushing the limits.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was
still are to some extent, right? I mean, look at World Time Attack right now.
Yeah.
Right. So arguably, right? You get into the world of motorsports, and sure, Formula One is just batshit crazy with technology and all this kind of stuff, and even endurance championships and stuff nowadays. But for the amateur motorsport person, right? Is there a more bleeding edge? I mean, because
I would say the Aussies have taken that crown as far as bleeding edge of time attack at this point. But I mean, they were the ones that pushed the envelope. The Japanese are the only reason that happened and got us excited, got them excited. They literally kind of built this sport.
Sure. Well, and so would you agree that one of the appeals of the WRX, the Subaru, and that kind of motorsport is like you could see these crazy time attack builds and see what it was. For the most part, none of this stuff was crazy one-offs. A lot of these parts were things that you could order, and
that is
like
one
a
of
lot
the
of
biggest
shops.
reasons I compete in street modified within Grid Life.
Yeah.
There are two big reasons for that. One is at the time it was the quickest way to get a Subaru competitive was running street modified. But two, everything that I was doing was relatable to my customer base, and it made sense. And if you look at street mod cars now, they look like unlimited time attack cars of 10 years ago.
Sure.
But it's relatable, and that is one of the cool things about this is you can look at my GC, and even though it's pretty heavily modified, you could see a GC. You know what I mean? If you look at a lot of the World Time Attack cars right now, you're going to have a hard time seeing what that is. They look like spaceships now.
Right.
But you look at my car, you look at the unlimited cars 10 years ago, even if you look at like the Cusco Tomei, the one that Tarzan Yamato was driving around. Yeah. You could look at that and go, it's a Hawkeye STI of some sort. Yeah. I mean, it's highly modified, but I can see it,
Yeah. The differences were underneath the hood. It wasn't necessarily in the body appearance as much because Aero hadn't gone completely bananas.
I mean, if you really knew when you got close to it, you could see where it was, but a lot of it wasn't one-off. Like my car definitely isn't one-off. My car is something you could build in your garage.
Right.
You just need a really sharp Sawzall blade.
Okay. I hear they sell those at a lot of different places.
Yeah, those are easy to get. Half of my car is Home Depot, and that is not a joke.
Yeah. Well, you can go a long way with ingenuity and in a good hardware store. That is for sure.
Yes, you can go a real long way.
I mean, I think so. The kind of the DNA that like launched Subarus and got a lot of us, except for Tasso because he was too young, into these cars was like seeing all these spectacles, but it was attainable. A lot of these crazy Halo cars, like it was not something that would be impossible for you to build in your garage. All right, so Dewey, when did you get into racing? How did you make the decision to get into racing? And Thanks for tuning in. To hear the whole conversation, click below for the full episode of this podcast, or tune in every week on iTunes or Spotify. If you like these episodes, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because your support is what makes all of this possible. As always, this show is brought to you by Flatirons Tuning, your premier source for any Subaru OEM or aftermarket parts. Check out our website at flatirons tuning.com, and as always, stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.